What's happening, Llama listeners? Joe here. In this episode, Frank and I had the privilege of chatting with Brian BK Kruzelnick, the Fighting 5th Air Force Command Chief. During our discussion, we had a great time talking about team building, genuine connection, and much, much more. Enjoy.
Life, learning, leadership, the Llama Lounge.
Hey, what is up? Welcome back to the Llama Lounge, a dialogue on all things life, learning, and leadership. This is Frankie Z. I'm here with one of my best friends, Triple OG, Joey Bogdan. What's happening, brother? How you doing, man?
Good, man. Triple OG. All right.
I don't know.
All right.
It just came to me. I just felt like, Triple OG, you've been around for a little bit. How things going for you over there?
Good, man. I've been, I think some people see it. I got a new weighted running vest, man. And that thing's amazing. I just went on my second run today and I knocked off a minute off my time because the first one was kind of paced myself, but loving it. And I'm not feeling like weird rubbing or pain anywhere. So my last one, it didn't work out too well. It beat up my ribs after about 6-mile runs.
Yeah. I saw the last one you had. You looked like Scorpion from Mortal Kombat.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. It was like Scorpion / Road Guard. Yeah, it was like, Road Guard vest / Scorpion vest.
Road Guard's not a good look, bro.
No.
Hey, so this podcast is special in that we're doing a little bit of a reboot. The first one didn't work out. We had some technical difficulties, but nonetheless, I want to introduce a special guest. He's from the Fighting 5th Air Force. He's the Command Chief of Yokota Air Base, Chief Brian B. What's up, BK? How you doing, man?
Good, man. Hey, I like to, before I get too far, man, I want to thank you guys. Thank you for having me back on again. I'm a big fan of the llamas because why not? And at the end of the day, you guys putting out great material. It's thoughtful. It's one thing to have a platform and it's another thing to put out thoughtful information on the platform. And I think sometimes as I see everything happening today, some people miss one or the other. And the other thing I like about you guys is you're very collaborative. I mean, you guys are getting articles from people all over the world and you're pushing it out through your websites and through Facebook platforms. And then as far as podcast, man, you're all inspiration. I know it took a couple of years to get here. A couple really good dudes that are get along well and trying to push out some great stuff. And then you guys just pulled the trigger. You dared greatly, as Theodore Roosevelt would say, and you made it happen. So complete inspiration. So I'd like to thank you guys for that.
Well, hey, I appreciate that. We'll take it. We'll take it for sure. Especially from a senior leader like yourself. Hey, so just to kind of give the listeners, honestly, I don't think anyone within our military community doesn't know who BK is, especially with the cooking videos you got out there. But before we get to those, because I definitely want to hit on those, kind of give our listeners a little bit of background of how you grew up in the Air Force and how you came to be the command chief out there in Yokota.
Yeah, man. So I'm kind of a simple dude. I like to say, BK from the block because I'm just a dude literally from the block, right? I'm just a street kid. It's the way I grew up in Jersey. I like everybody, I've seen rough times. I didn't have the best upbringing. I was just talking earlier that I'm very free on giving everything I can to people because I know what it is to have nothing. And it's very freeing, by the way, if you ever get the opportunity. But it allows me, I think, to give as much as I can to others because I'm not scared at this point. So like I said, I grew up in Jersey. I'm a huge New York Giants fan. If you guys only listen to this, I got like 17 New York Giants jerseys, and I'm wearing one of them right now to my boy Eli. So haters gotta hate. I know I'm on a podcast with some people in my division, like the Soaring Eagles, but it is what it is. Hey, man, at my core, I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm an airman. And I try to keep it in that order the most I possibly can and always try to gain harmony through all of those three. And I think all of us know that that's a challenge. It's not a balance, it's a harmony as much as you can. As far as 5th Air Force, man, it's in Japan. 5th Air Force is – and as far as Japan, it's probably a little bit smaller than California, to give you a perspective. Although California has 37 million people and Japan has 126. I mean,
Wow.
37 million people and Japan has 126 million people. There's 40 million people in Tokyo alone, brother. It's the biggest city in the world.
Yeah.
You know, and as you kind of look at Japan in the very north, we have Misawa, the 35th Fighter Wing. Right outside Tokyo, we have 374th Airlift Wing. And then in the south, in the Okinawan Islands, we have the 18th Wing. And those are my three major wings, aside from the bilateral stuff that I do between Japan and Australia, and maybe outside of 5th Air Force with the Koreans and the Canadians and all sorts of people that come through this AOR that we build relationships with. But I don't want to talk about me too much because it's weird. So that's what I'm going to give you unless you would need more. And I'm going to shut up.
Okay, no, we can work with that. So, you know, I think, you know, what we're seeing right now, we've seen quarantine university kind of pop off, especially, you know, since coronavirus is kind of, it just made a lot of things come to light, you know what I mean? And so it's given us a new platform is kind of what I'm trying to say. And something that we've seen a lot from you is you also leveraging your social media platform. Some of the things that you're doing on there is you're cooking. And so as we can tell, it's probably a passion of yours. Can you tell us a little bit about how your cooking is tied into your leadership philosophies?
Yeah, I could definitely do that. Thank you for the question. So, you know, I feel like there's a point where we might be coming into leadership overload.
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody's in your face with all this leadership stuff. But I think if we could bring it more to maybe some homegrown stuff that we do every day, like cooking and cooking at home, since, you know, we are quarantined up, COVID-19 up at times, and we might spend more time at home and not so much time eating out. It's a great maybe avenue to maybe reach more people. And sometimes I try to tie it to some leadership stuff the best I can. But I'll tell you, man, to me, leadership and cooking kind of go hand in hand. They really do. When you cook, you're using these ingredients from everywhere, right? And you got to try to get the most out of each ingredient and have them work in harmony with each other to produce something that people want to have, that want to eat, right? In this case. And I think that lends to a lot of leadership. We have a diverse force, but is it inclusive? And as a leader, you're kind of pushed, I think, to make it inclusive. Just take my sauce. We talk about, hey man, I made a sauce video. I'm very passionate. So if you watch the sauce video compared to maybe pancakes I made or waffles, I might not have the passion, the craziness that I had in the sauce one, because I take sauce very seriously.
Yeah,
it is what it is. I apologize.
It's important. It's important.
It is important. It's a basis for everything. So, well, look at the sauce, right? So I'm including these ingredients. I start with my onions from the U.S. My onions come from the U.S. The garlic come from Japan. Most garlic comes from Japan. Then I start adding in my olives, right? That's from Greece. I move in my basil. It's from my garden, which is in Japan. You know, tomatoes from Italy. Salt. Most salts come from Canada. You know, peppercorns. If you don't notice, Vietnam is one of the biggest producers of peppercorns. Sugar from Africa. All these ingredients in countries, most countries that don't even go together, trying to get the most out of each and every one of those ingredients, where none outshines the other, but everyone needs each other at the end of the day to produce something that's wonderful. And you put it in front of somebody and they love it, they eat it, they can taste the love in it, although the countries that made it might not have love for each other. You're getting the most out of every single ingredient to have it shine, but it only shines because it has others. Tomatoes in itself aren't a sauce, or gravy as I call it. It's just tomatoes. It only becomes a sauce when I add all this other stuff. Kind of like your unit, man. Your unit doesn't necessarily become a unit until you see every individual person in that unit, understand them, and help them work together with the other people that are in the unit. And so once again, I really feel like that leadership goes hand in hand with the idea of cooking. It really does. I won't say chef, I'll just say cooking.
Yeah.
And I love to kind of showcase that as much as I can. And plus I love it, and I love producing something for people. I love to cook, but what I love more for cooking is the aftermath of cooking. And that's when we sit around, right? And as you eat, which is like a basic need, as your basic needs are satisfied, you relax. And when you relax, we can have a dialogue. And when we have a dialogue, we have an understanding. When we have an understanding, then we connect. You know, it's a really nice, easy path. And I've done it a lot of my career with teams I've had. I can go into that if you want, but I've talked a lot already. But so I'll shut up right there unless you want me to go into the story. I have a story about one particular time with the team I've had, but it's up to you.
Let's do that. But I can, if our audio, or not the audio, but if our technology was a little bit better, we would cue to like Goodfellas, where he's doing doing the sauce instructions. He talks about how he's cutting the garlic
with a blade. Yeah, with a blade.
I'm like, all right, now I got to make sauce. Then you came out with your video on how to make sauce. I'm like, and I was telling my wife, I'm like, oh man, BK's making sauce. We don't know how to make sauce.
Right. You got the video on, right? You just like even the pancake video. I was thinking I need to make pancakes right now because I cannot stop watching this. And that was actually the first time I saw one of your videos. Like, I can't stop watching this man make pancakes. I don't know. I'm just like, I'm in an trance right now. It was amazing. And how you tied it in to so much of just life lessons. And man, this is amazing, BK. You do some great stuff on those videos.
Yeah,
I appreciate it. Actually, the pancake was the first one, and usually it was the first one because that's the first one how I teach my kids how to cook. You know, when they sit down and we talk through it, and obviously, some of them, you got to figure out what people want. We call it the love language, right? I don't know if you guys know the 5 love languages. They have 5 love languages for kids. They have it for adults. So I did the ones with my kids, and I realized that some of my kids like, quality time. They don't want a pony. They want quality time, right? So my kids would like affirmation. They want to be told that they're doing well, So I kind of wanted to figure out how to lead my children. And I don't think that's bad to say it that way because I think maybe I'm just crazy. I see leadership lessons and leadership in almost everything in life. And it's just another way because I want them to someday to lead through an understanding and then through a connection. So that's the first one I started with. It's a fairly easy one, and they can kind of get into it. And you can't really mess it up once the ingredients are laid out,
Oh, man, I'll prove you wrong. I'll prove you wrong.
Shoot. But to that point, and I said I'd tell you a quick story, and I'm just going to take the liberty to do that right now.
Please.
So I was at a flight chief role, and I had some section chiefs beneath me, and I've told this story quite a few times, but I'll tell it again. And they just weren't getting along. I think a lot of the guys, and I say guys, just as a generic, but the guys and females that we had together, they probably kind of grew up together a little bit. Now they're master sergeants. There might be a little bit of competition. They might have done something, 3 years ago that pissed the other person off and they never got over it. There's this kind of like personal, maybe professional dissent, that was there. And they weren't working together well at all. And how I initially saw it? I saw it in the junior airmen. I saw it in the junior airmen that fell beneath each one of these master sergeants, the way they were treating each other. So look at that. We have people at the master sergeant level, some of them were tech sergeants, whose their attitude and their way they conducted themselves 100% bled into junior airmen and the way they treated people who fell underneath the other person's guidance. That's how impactful leadership is, and it is not tied necessarily to position or rank. It's just kind of tied into what people are connecting with. And so they had that loyalty there, and I was like, man, enough's enough. So I went in there and I gathered them all together, and this had to be immediate, right? We didn't have time for patience. We needed to be persistent, and I think patience is just too passive. So if you're ever doing anything, don't necessarily be patient, be persistent. So I brought all the guys to my house because I had to start working on that Maslow's hierarchy, right? Break it down to the very base of that triangle. Strip away everything. Now I'm not trying to figure out the troubleshooting of where went things. I'm just bringing them down to the base and rebuilding the base because obviously we didn't have a good one to start. So I brought them to my house. So boom, I gave them shelter, my house. I gave food, I gave them water, gave them all that stuff. From that point, you can kind of move to the next tier where you have safety among each other. And then once you have safety among each other, you can move to belonging, right? So, Maslow's hierarchy, although people fight it a lot, I think it's got strong baselines. So I brought them over to my house. And my intent was not to feed them. My intent was them to have an understanding to lead to connection. So dialogue, understanding, connection. Like that's where I wanted to flow. If my intention was to feed them, I'd have grabbed some burgers from Burger King, would have sat down on some hard plastic chairs, and I would have threw food at them. But that wasn't the intent. I needed them to have an understanding of each other. So I had to bring their families and their kids and their wives, and the kids played in one of the rooms, and the wives and spouses and we all kind of stood together, and they got there a little bit early. And I was like, hey, man, grab that bread, dip it into the sauce. Tell me what you think. So we're trying to break down every barrier. And by the time we sat around the table, everybody was relaxed. They really had a little bit of food in them. They were comfortable. And to this day, those spouses still connect with each other. To this day, man. And that was, oh my God, man, it must have been 12 years ago, right? And to this day, they're still really good friends. And most of the team is pretty good friends. And after that, they were great. And we didn't talk about work. Not to the end. Like, as I wrapped it up, I was like, hey, we just spent the last hour and a half, and I made them homemade pasta. We rolled the dough out. We cut it. We dried it. We cooked it. I made the sauce. I made the meatballs. I made we made everything from scratch because I want them to show that leadership is about investment. Invest in everything you do, and people will respond to that. And leadership is about trying to give avenues for dialogue. So I made a post one time fairly recently that said, curiosity gives opportunity to connection. So curiosity, asking each other's questions, fielded an opportunity for us to connect with each other because we answered those questions and found more about each other. You kind of see where I'm going with all that?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of all connects together. But at the end of the day, like I said, they all got together. They all still to this day are friends. And that was a long story. I apologize, but that's kind of the way one experience on the way that rolled down.
Yeah. I think connecting with our airmen, and this is something we hit on last time, is that, as we progress throughout our career and maybe we get to, the pinnacle of the enlisted career as a chief master sergeant, I don't know if there's anything in professional military education that teaches you, hey, here's how you connect better with your airmen. I think, as a former ALS instructor, I can't recall, hey, here's some emotional intelligence values, things that you should practice to figure out how to break down that barrier. Because at the end of the day, I don't care who you are, if you're a senior NCO, right? You're a senior non-commissioned officer, and you're talking to an airman, there's a barrier there, and it takes a little bit of connection. You have to have an art. That's the art to it. There's a science. Science is management, and art is breaking down that piece. And you talked about building that connection. I wonder if we can add to that, for PME. Yeah.
I can, and it's such a complicated question, but yet an easy question at the same time. So if you follow anything I do, I talk a lot. In my humble opinion, I think leadership is giving people what they need when they need it. If you want to break it down, I feel if you're somehow giving people what they need when they need it, which will lead to success, whether there's failure in there or not, I think you're leading. And I think the intent of leadership is connection, as we discussed. I think a lot of us maybe grew up where everybody's saying influence. The intent of leadership is influence. I'm influencing people. And I just had this conversation the other day. I just don't feel it, especially in today's society, because we have online influencers, right? People that are just trying to get 1 billion likes and follows so they can make money so they can eat. It comes back to the basic needs. Just trying to eat, man.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily think that's leadership. I think they're trying to just make money, right? And I think leadership is so intimate that I would hate to associate it with just a sheer influence. Because even if you look online, people might post some things, and then one person will post something contrary to everything else, and then all of a sudden everybody changes their mind. And I feel like if there was leadership in there, maybe you gave them something concrete to work from, where they don't have to be so fleeting with what they're passionate about, because they have a better understanding. And I think that I can't say it enough. I think understanding and connection kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah.
So as I said, I'm trying to peel back connection. And I think we're peeling it back to empathy and vulnerability.
Yeah.
We'll go with those two. And that's kind of right up Brene Brown's alley. If you ever watched or read anything that she's done, she's, fantastic. You know what she's fantastic at being? She's fantastic at being vulnerable. Like to go into front of millions, really. I mean, if you kind of go back to even her TED Talks, of people, and stripping down and just being raw about yourself as a person. Oh boy, man, that's freeing.
Yeah.
We talk about Fight Club, right? And I know it's an old movie. If you haven't seen it, Netflix it or Amazon Prime it up. And you'll see that Edward Norton, who's kind of the main character, doesn't even have a name. Like people always think he has a name. He doesn't. He's labeled as narrator. and then his alter ego, I'm not going to ruin it too much, is Brad Pitt, and that's Tyler Durden. And at a point, Tyler Durden looks at I will just say Brad Pitt looks at Edward Norton. He says, it's not until you lose everything that you're free to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And what do I think that boils down to? It's fear. I think once you lose everything, you're not fearful anymore, because what would you be fearful of? You've already lost everything. I think most people are fearful of losing everything. Mm-hmm. And once you have a peace in that, like a peace, like P-E-A-C-E, not like a peace, but like you find peace
right
in that. And then I think that allows you to live up to everything that you can. So anyway, empathy and vulnerability. I think empathy is recognizing emotion in somebody else. I think there's 4 basic parts, and this is just through education that I've kind of read this many times, is one, being able to take another person's perspective, right? That's where it starts. So don't look it through your eyes, look it through theirs. For 2, it's not being judgmental by what you see. For 3, it's actually being able to recognize that emotion. And then the 4th thing, and this is where vulnerability comes in, is you're going to have to go back to your mental database of when you felt something similar, and now you're going to have to bring it out to front. And when you have felt that, you might have repressed that sucker, and it might be down deep in your soul. And you're going to have to bring that out, and you're going to bring it to the front. And that person you're bringing it to the front with might or might not accept it. And that's why I think a lot of leaders may have a problem, in the sense where you are opening or you're extending the olive branch, but that person does not have to take it, so you lose the power. And I think a lot of A-type personality people like having the power.
Yeah.
And once you lose the power, man, it's makes you vulnerable, and that's kind of where they fit into each other.
Yeah.
And man, we could talk about vulnerability a lot, but I think those are the two things that really kind of feed your connection. So it's being able to recognize empathy, having empathy, and then being vulnerable. And those 2 are going to lead to your connection. It's hard to connect with somebody who's never felt what you felt at any degree. Now, I'm not saying at the same level, because that would almost be unfair, because some people are just they're going to have more opportunity where more challenges are going to be thrusted upon them, where they want it or not. And another person may not ever be able to fully have that same challenge, but they might have it to a degree, right? So this is not a comparison who had it worse. This is a connection. Yeah. Trying to get to where that person is at some level and trying to connect.
Man, BK, I know we're talking about vulnerability, where I think is so powerful. And, I think maturity and courage plays a huge part in that too. But what you talked about a moment ago, I mean, I'm still thinking about it like a moment, because you were talking about a minute ago about the influence and the connection. And I'll tell you what, I'll be 100% honest with you. When you first talked about it, on social media and other places, I wasn't fully on board with what you were saying about the influence piece. But the way you explained it right there really just kind of blew a hole in my mind for a moment, you know what I mean? And I think that's pretty awesome, because I know, because I'm just sitting here thinking about it. I was like, yeah, when you're talking about like whatever, it might be an Instagram model or whatever, it might be an influencer, but it doesn't mean they're a leader, right? So now that's some good stuff, man. I just want to give you some kudos, because it took a moment for me to fully grasp what you were saying, and now I think I'm getting there. You know what I mean? I'm understanding what you're talking about.
And I appreciate it, man. I tell you, what I try to do a lot is I ask a lot of questions. Mm-hmm. To the dismay of most people around me. And I even ask myself a lot of questions, right? And I think sometimes our what we've atrophied is our curiosity. And I think we did it because we have learned through learned behavior. We've watched other people, we've heard other people for so long. And once we've done that for so long, we've just adopted that freely. Almost a leap of trust. We talk about leaps of trust a lot. You guys most people do this. I'm not going to target you. In general, people might want to buy something, so they go online and look at reviews from people they've never met.
Right.
They are 100% sure that they want to buy this now from reviews of people like they never met, and might hold their opinion over people that they do know.
Yeah.
That's what we call a leap of trust. They have no idea but man, you know, Ghost Rider 7 said this was a great car. So
Right.
damn it, that's the one I'm going to buy.
Right. And they're a bot.
And it's
yeah,
a
it's not even a real
deal.
person.
Yeah. I'm going to buy a weighted vest because the triple OG said it was a good one, right? And that is what it is.
Yeah.
That's your new call sign, by the way, Joe.
and we do it all the time, right? I mean, if you guys have ever taken an Uber, you've taken a leap of trust. You don't know if that's a serial killer. You hope it's not because they have 5 stars, you know, and other people thought they were good. You know, you might stay in an Airbnb. 191 countries and counting have offered Airbnbs. So these are people in countries that you've never been to, from people you've never met. And you're gonna stay in their homes, and these people are gonna allow you to stay. Leaps of trust all the time, but in your unit, it becomes very challenging to take leaps of trust for some reasons, right? So, you know, and I'm gonna get back to your question about influence in a minute, but let's just go down this rabbit hole for a second. So I kind of put trust, and you guys may have heard me talk about this, trust and transparency. I put it on a sliding scale, right? So transparency on one side and trust on the other. Although, once again, a lot of people use them together because we've always kind of hear that, so we just accepted that that's right. But think about it. If I trust you, how many questions do I have to ask? I trust you. Yeah. Like I don't need transparency. So, you know, there's times, and it changes. It changes depending on what we're looking at. There's times where, you know, I trust the triple OG to train me. So I trust you. But then there's other times that maybe there's more personal things in my life that I don't trust you as much. So even situation per situation, it's a sliding scale, right? And you're welcoming people into your unit, brand new people to you, but they weren't just born. They're brand new people to you. So when you gain these people, you're gaining every experience that they've ever had from the time that they were born to then. Every childhood experience, every meaningful relationship or non-meaningful relationship they've ever had, every supervisor they've ever had, every leader they've ever had, every unit they've ever been a part of. When that person comes to your organization, it's the first time you've seen them. It's not the first thing they've seen. So talk about this trust and transparency. You guys are really awesome dudes, and you're going to be there going, trust me, you know, I'm just that guy you can trust. But when they see you and in that position, you say, trust me, they might think of the last person they dealt with that stole all the work they did and gave them no credit. Or the person that bypassed them for a position based not on their capability, but on the way they looked. When you say, hey, I'm here for you, they might think of the worst point they had in their life and nobody was around. It was a ghost town, you know. You might say, hey, I'm open to feedback. And they might think of the last leader they had, they gave feedback to, and they got their head bit off for it. So you don't gain that right away. You don't, and you shouldn't. You have to earn it every day by your deeds, by what you do to try to move that scale. And once again, you know, to borrow Simon Sinek, that's an infinite battle, not a finite. You don't declare victory on trust. You don't have a trophy. You're not like, hey, I've gained trust. It's not an end game. It's just like, all of this, none of this is an end game. Every day you're working on it because there's gonna be times where trust might be broken, maliciously or not. You know, that's the first thing I always look at. Was this a sheer flat out breach, or is this something that happened? And then you're gonna have to work your way back, you know, and then if we gotta go down that road, then you're gonna have to try to build relationship resiliency. What does that mean? So me and Frankie Z are hanging out, and at some point I broke his trust. Frankie does not want me to come back to him and say, these are the reasons I broke your trust. Frankie wants me to come back to him and say, listen, brother, I broke your trust. There's no reason in the world I could give you that makes it right. I'm going to take ownership. I broke your trust. I know I did. This is what I'm going to do to never do that again. And then on top of that, I'm going to start building positive moments with you so that when you think about it, the last thing you don't think about is when the trust was broke. So look at this. We all have good friends, maybe best friends. Don't tell me throughout the time that you had these good friends and best friends that trust wasn't broken or they didn't do you wrong in some way at some point, but you're still good friends. Why? Because you have got over a hard time and you have built relationship resiliency that's stronger now because you know you can get through it and you kind of move forward. You're not going to be perfect. None of us are. And it goes back to the vulnerability piece. You know, a lot of people have a hard time making connections because about 47, almost 50% of people do not have a meaningful connection on a daily basis. Think about that. 50%, half of the people, almost half of the people that you encounter on a daily basis have never felt a meaningful connection, at least that day. I think as a person who loves humanity
Mhm.
and uses the word love in every bit of conversation I ever have, I mean, that's hard for me to grasp. But you know what that boils down to a lot is our own insecurities sometimes. So we're all flawed, brother.
Yeah.
As perfect as every one of you guys are, we're flawed humans. We just are.
You know,
So-
BK, I wish I could say, man, you're talking to the 25-year-old Frankie, but you're talking to like the things that happened in my life 3 weeks ago. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like, so
it is
really good insight.
So we're flawed, right? So number one, you got to recognize your flaws, and then have to accept it. I'm flawed, and then you have to accept the fact that you're warranted to have a good, meaningful connection anyway.
Mhm.
Despite all our flaws, we still
Mhm.
we should be given the opportunity to have a meaningful relationship.
Yeah.
So this is not even, this could be military or not, but this is the people you're gaining in your unit, right?
Mhm.
And this is you, not only people you're gaining, but this is you. And that's huge to be able to understand yourself well enough to say, as flawed as I am, and there's times in my life where I didn't think I deserved anything. I felt like I wasn't worthy. I'm not worthy to be on this podcast with you. What have I ever done significant enough to be here with you right now? You know, in my mind, that's what it was. Like, I was never good enough for myself because I have all these flaws and all this baggage and all these demons that I fight every day. I think we all do, you know, all this stuff that happens to us. And we beat ourselves down to the point where we don't even feel like we warrant it. So I asked you guys this last time. Do you ever root for the underdog? Either of you? You ever root for an underdog?
Always.
100%.
All the time.
Right?
Rudy.
Unless they're playing my Seahawks, and then no. But
Well, hey man, the Seahawks were underdogs for a long time.
for almost
until they got
my
to where
entire
they are.
almost into my entire career.
Yeah. And then are you ever excited to see an underdog win?
Oh yeah.
Right? Yeah. You know why? Because I think you see yourself in that underdog. You see somebody that's not fast enough, not strong enough, not smart enough, that shouldn't even be in the arena with that big champion. Shouldn't even be in the arena, but they're competing. And then they win. And in that win, you're vindicated because you're vicariously living through that team that did not, I mean, on paper does not match up, does not have it. But they did it. They were unworthy. They were deemed unworthy by everybody, and they came out victorious. And I think we see ourselves in it. And it's okay to be the underdog, but just realize this, man, you are worthy. And you should have meaningful relationships. And I don't care what circumstances you're up against. People win, even when they're not supposed to.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They
I'm
win
thinking that movie Cinderella Man with
Yeah.
who's that?
Russell Crowe. Yeah, that was a
Russell
good
Crowe.
movie.
And of course you got Rudy.
Oh yeah. I
Yeah.
did. Yeah, man.
Hey,
Dude,
BK, so you did say something I really want to go back to, and it really talks about, you know, talks to the managers in the organizations. You said don't be patient, be persistent. And what can you give us some insight on that? Because sometimes I feel like folks that don't let things just kind of play out could be viewed as micromanagers, right? Like let the system work or not. You know, kind of just gonna give us some insight on that.
Yeah, so I guess what I kind of mean, and I did it in the vein of connections. So we just talked about it, right? You're gaining people that have whole life experiences. You know, you first see them for the outside because that plays into your life experiences. And then you got to dig what's in the inside. You know, I brought this up before, seeing people at their loneliness. You know, Noel for merchant. From the moment you guys came screaming out of the womb, somebody slapped you on the butt, wrote your name on a piece of paper to the point where you stand today. You're the only person that owns those experiences, or, you know, owns what you've learned and has done what you've done. And kind of seeing people for that, the whole of them. And then kind of once you kind of see them for that, and you're gaining these people from all these walks of life, it might take a minute to break those shells. I just told you almost 50% of people don't have a meaningful connection on a daily basis. Yeah. About 40% of people don't have a connection at all with their parents. So I mean, that's a fairly large number. Yeah. So I might come to you, you know, Frankie Z, man, I might come to you and be this dude, you know, and I come to the room with you, and I'm always the dude that wants to talk to you and find out about your life. And man, you're going to give me one word answers. Yes, no, good, right? So what do? I'm like, okay, this is all this person can give me. I'll move on to the next person. So I can't be patient with you, though. I'll be patient that day, but I'm going to come to you every day. Every single day until I start breaking down those walls, right? And I start earning, not be given. I start earning a meaningful relationship with you. And I'm going to attack it I'm going to use everything I got. Man, I've been doing this for a long time, so I got a lot of tricks. I'm going to use everything I got, fair or unfair, in my repertoire to break down those walls to the point that we can connect at some level. And I will have enough emotional intelligence and social intelligence to know when I'm not going to get anywhere and it's futile through that one conversation. But that's just one conversation. And guess what? We're going to have some more. So that's what I kind of mean by don't be patient, be persistent. You come into your organization and you see there's a problem. You do your litmus test, right? I walk in, and as I walk into the room, I see there's complete tension between everybody. I see that there's this hidden animosity between people, this passive aggressive behavior. And I'm like, holy smoke, man, we got issues. Or I come into the room and all of a sudden everybody's more tense and there's more problems. So that's pointing to me. I got to do a little Michael Jackson, look at the man in the mirror and kind of see what the problem is. So, through all that, now we can't be patient. Oh, it'll work itself out. No, man. Inaction is immediate failure. So I can't be patient with that. I have to attack it with great vengeance. I have to build avenues where we can have connections, where we can build a community. If it's me, if I'm the problem, then I have to fix myself. We talk about being authentic. If the authentic you is an a-hole, don't be the authentic you, right? Because your intent is not going to be met. To be authentic, you need to have a care for other people. Because that's showing empathy. So being authentic and empathy together go together. I can't just attack you or be the authentic me without a concern for you. I can't, man, because I'm an intent guy again. That's not my intent. My intent is not to have you walk away belittled. My intent was try to advance whatever that is, the relationship, the experience, the moment. And I can't do that if I'm not taking your concerns into considerations, which ties back to empathy. So I think connection, vulnerability, and empathy, right? So,
and I think you had mentioned it before when inherently you're just kind of you seem to be a negative person and you're an a-hole. That's just probably just selfish, because you're not thinking of how it makes other people feel.
No, you're exactly right. I mean, please, I'm not saying don't be the authentic you. Be the authentic you. You can't be somebody else. That person's already taken. You got to be who you are.
Right.
And nobody knows how to be you better than you, so you might as well stick to it. But you have to be concerned for others because we're social animals. This goes back to social intelligence. We talk a lot about emotional intelligence. I really think we need to talk about social intelligence as well. Right? Understanding socially what's happening just as much as you're trying to understand individually what's happening. And both of those go hand in hand. And to your point, Frankie, you brought this up earlier. You said, you and I as a PME instructor that we may not teach certain things. And Joey B here, he might be able to contest as you become a chief. There's not a lot of stuff that they arm you with right away. A lot of times they'll say, hey, read these 5 leadership books, start thinking strategically and get after it, right? And you're like, oh, shit, there's 100%. A lot of stuff in between that I'm missing, right? And that would be great if you're going to go work next to General Goldfein, but you're not. You're going to a squadron. You're going to a flight, or you're going somewhere at a more tactical level. Don't you think they need a little bit more than that? They're not necessarily working every day at a strategic level. They're working every day at a tactical level. That's where all the magic is happening. That's where all the work's happening. That's where people are rolling up their sleeves and getting after every day at that tactical level, where now we have put you as a new chief in there to get after it. So think strategically. Yeah, grow yourself strategically. But, man, every day you're operating at a tactical level, and that's blocking and tackling. That's connection. That's tying people to I say unit intent. Some people say commander's intent, but I think when you say to me commander's intent, you know who I think owns that? The commander.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I own that.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't we say unit intent, right? And that's your ability to look at where you're trying to go as an organization or an enterprise, and then look at where the people are working each and every day based off what you know of them and the challenges they have, just as much at the job as they have personal. Listen, don't focus one or the other. If you're just focusing on personal, which a lot of chiefs do, they want to know what you did last night. They want to know who you're hanging out with or some of that stuff. Or they're on the other side. They just want to know work. You got to know both. I got to know what's bothering you on a personal level just as much as professional level. And I can't do that if I'm just doing drive-bys. Hey, what's up? Blah, blah, blah. Cool. High five, you know. And how's work going? Good. Okay, good. Appreciate it. And then you check in a block. Okay, talking about work. They liked it. Yeah. They're doing well. And then you move on. But, you know, you got to invest a little bit. You got to say, okay, we're doing this task. Let's do this task with me. Let me see what this looks like. And all of a sudden, you know, they have to veer from maybe some of the guidance, or they're getting other things to work around. And you're like, oh, hold on a second. What in the world are we doing? And they're like, well, Chief, the only way this works is if we do these 6 workarounds, because this test equipment's broke and this doesn't actually line up anymore because this TO hasn't been updated since 1980. And you're going through this like, well, wait a minute. Why haven't we changed any of this? You told me work was good. You're like, it is good. We figured it out. You see what I'm saying? Like, in their mind, it's good because they figured it out. In your mind, you're like, holy Jesus, what a waste of time and energy that we're doing here because we didn't step up to make change happen. So, you know, you have to figure all that out. Now you're working in the delta, right? What I call the delta, the difference between where that organization is pushed towards and where the humans are at. And you can't be patient to kind of our conversation. You got to attack that.
Yeah.
How do I work in the delta? How do I eliminate barriers? How do I take down constraints? How do I allow this to be easier instead of harder, and not let people walk around thinking that 6 workarounds is acceptable? How do I make it fundamentally unacceptable for anybody to do anything that's not, you know, treating people with dignity and respect on one side, but also not very, with being effective to the work side? Like, how do we build a culture like that? And I think that's just me trying to tie all that together, but that's kind of what I'm thinking when you say that. Yeah. And I'll shut up again.
No, it's all good stuff. Wow. Man, this is a lot of gems he's dropping right there, isn't he, Frank? But yeah, I think that
I'm writing it all down. I
know. It's like, you know, we're all sitting there like, wow.
Well, to the point though, we gotta think with intellectual curiosity. And this kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, right? We regurgitate a lot. We have learned behavior, and we beat our chest because that's the way we were brought up. But man, I would challenge anybody to think through the why of it, right? We talk about why questions and we get frustrated and blah, blah. Man, you should have just as many why questions as anybody else. Why am I doing it this way? Is this right? You know, I like tough love. One time I came out and I said, tough love, it's stupid. Oh my God, dude. If people could have came out and punched me in the face through the screen, they would have done it. You know why? Because they've been talking their whole life that was right. If I had to do something stupid, I want to make you do something stupid and suffer as you do it, because that's your growth. That's tough love. And I challenged it, and I think there should be an and between. Because I think tough love was high standards that you have set for somebody, but it was followed with low devotion. Because by definition, that's kind of what it is. Whether you like that definition or not, I don't know what to tell you. It's education. And then what I would rather say is and, because that's high devotion and high standards combined. So I have to give you what I like to call, and I don't know if I made it up or not, but I like to say supported autonomy. Because I think everybody's looking for empowerment. Everybody's looking for autonomy, but are they really? You know how lonely autonomy is? That's lonely, man. There ain't no safety net. It's you, right? So I like the term of supported autonomy. Like I'm a tight wire rope walker. And I have a safety net. I may or may not need that safety net. I may make it across clean and never ever use it. But if I do fall, I'm going to be caught. I'm going to be safe, and I'll be able to be put right back up on that wire and do it my way as I cross it. So I think that's what a lot of people are looking for. Supported autonomy, supported empowerment. Yeah. Give them the ability to get after it the way they have to get after it to meet the end state, the desired end state. But you got to make sure that they know that you have their back in that. And nobody, man, you can argue with me as much as you want. I just don't think anybody wants to be lonely in that. I don't think anybody wants to work without a safety net. And I feel like we got to supply that at some level.
You know,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah. Yeah, that's going back to, I'm really like digging this conversation about connections. And what comes to mind is, okay, so maybe at the unit level, that's easier, not easy, easier to achieve because you see these airmen every day and you see your teammates every day. In Korea, it's a unique thing because we're rotating. And so I don't know if that's making me a better leader or just making me feel like, man, I don't even know who this guy is. I gotta start all over again. But I mean, as a command chief, that's gotta be extremely hard to build those connections and not do the drive-bys because sometimes that's all you have time for. How do you get around that?
So, brother, I mean, it's a great question, right? And to tell you that I can have the strongest connection in the world with, I don't know, 26, 30,000 people I have in the Air Force. So, I mean, I'm a dude. I'm one dude.
Yeah.
Right? And we're geographically separated. But to your point, one of my toughest command chief jobs that I had is when I was deployed command chief. And, a lot of people they think that might be an easy job or whatever. Listen, I'm a 4-time command chief, and that was my toughest one, was deployed. Why? To your point. So I was there for a year. 6 months of that was with one group. That group rotated out. Or I'm sorry, 3 months. 3 months of that was with one group. That group rotated out. 6 full months with another group. That group rotated out. 3 months with another group. It was essentially being like a wing command chief of 3 different wings in 1 year. That's how I think about it. Everything that we set up as acceptable social norms across those 3 months of the first group, we did so well that it became concrete and we're all on the same page. Now we have a whole new group for another 6 months. Those are not social norms anymore. And by the way, as we talked about earlier, we gained people from all different spots of the world. So we gained all of them, all of their experiences, everything that they thought was normal from all these different places. Now for 6 months, I have these people and I have to work through all that again. And then they leave. And then here, lo and behold, 3 months later, a whole different group. So I go back to the thing I said earlier, brother. Be persistent, not patient.
Yeah.
You got to get after it. Just because it's physically impossible for me to make those connections at the level I want with every single individual person does not mean I don't try.
Right.
Every day I got a job. Every day I got to wake up and I got to roll up my sleeves and I got to serve everyone. Like we say servant leadership. Sometimes we get confused on who the servant is in that leadership role. But it's me in that case. I'm the servant leader, so I can do everything I can. And I was selfish at times. There's stuff I didn't know, so I went to people and I had them pour into me. I said, hey man, I'm sitting at the table with General Rigian. He's using a lot of words I've never heard before. My A2 folks, who's like the intel people, church me up. And then I went to people and I had them pour into me because I'm a simple aircraft maintainer, baby. I got limitations too. So I got to learn everything I possibly can. And then the reason for that, I'm going to diverge a little bit from the conversation, is because now I have an opportunity to sit at a table. And a lot of people will fight to say, oh, I want to sit at that table so you can hear my voice. I'm concerned on those people. So Joey B, man, as you sit at the table and you sit at bigger and bigger tables as you move through, and then Frankie right behind him, guys, you are not carrying your voice. You know whose voice you're carrying? Every human who's not sitting at that table. You don't have the right to go in there and use your mind of what you thought things were when you did the job, which is probably a while, and then bring that to the table as sound advice to anybody. Yeah. You have to bring the current, accurate challenges and barriers that people are facing right now and bring that. And if you don't understand the mission set, if you don't understand those challenges and you didn't take time to invest in people to learn that, then I challenge your seat at the table, because I don't necessarily think you deserve to be there, because you're not value added at that point to the people you need to be value added to. Yeah. Your voice is not your voice. Your voice is everybody that doesn't sit at the table. And also, just to take that line of thought, I think every table should be round. I don't think there should ever be a square, rectangular, rhombus-styled table anywhere in the world. And the reason I say that is when we sit at a table that's round, everybody's voice is equal because there's no head of the table. And once we start making that position, I immediately have a barrier when I walk in a room and I see that there's a square or rectangular table. My barrier is that there's only one person that matters, the person at the head of the table. Anytime I talk to anybody and I have the ability to run a meeting, I never sit at the head of the table. I sit somewhere in the center. Freaks people out because they always leave that spot open, right? So if there's no seats available, I roll up to whoever's sitting in the seat I want to sit at, say, can you do me a favor? I need you to sit over there instead. And, their eyes open wide. Why? Because when we're at the table, we had to be able to have a free flow of ideas and thoughts and have take the diverse experiences everybody has and listen to that all. Now, let's not get it twisted now. Once we leave the table, we know who has the responsibility, has the ownership of it. I get that. But while you're in it, we have to be able to talk freely. We just do. So every table should be round. If I ever get to a position of authority in anything, I'm only going to buy round tables, like the Knights of the Round Table, where everybody's voice is equal.
Yeah.
And just for you guys, as you move through your leadership journey, remember, when we sit at the table, it's not your voice to carry. It's your voice to be heard, but the voice that you're carrying is everybody you represent.
Yeah, that's the epitome of servant leadership, the epitome of it.
Yeah.
To me, that's what a senior NCO is. That's what your job is when you sit at the table, is to say, hey, this is what I'm reporting from the front line, and these are things that we need to take care of. So I really appreciate that insight.
That's no problem, brother. I think if you have a platform, and your position sometimes is your platform, and you might have others, like you guys have plenty of platforms, right? I mean, you have a website, you have things on social media, you have your podcast. And I think if you have a platform, you've got to be able to give people without a voice, right? And I think it's probably very poetic right now, is when you don't give people a voice, then that becomes dangerous. And all that energy is put to something that might not be what they want to put their energy towards. And it might even be counterproductive. And then you might slowly become what you don't want to become. And if you guys want to find the people, and we'll bring it back to a squadron. If you guys want to find the people that can advance your squadron the most through the most innovative ideas, find the disgruntled people. You know why they're disgruntled? Because they have a better way of doing it and no one's listening to them. So they're disgruntled. So they're taking all that energy they have and they're maybe putting it towards negative stuff and being negatively disruptive in an organization instead of positively disruptive. If you give people a voice, you better watch out. When you first give somebody a voice and you actually hear what they have to say, man, only goodness can come. And this is the other thing I say. Once you have a voice and once you have a platform, there's kind of responsibility that goes along with it. You have to be thoughtful in what you say, because people are listening, right? And if you have something like this, you're not only listening, you're doing, right? So you're doing stuff. And people may listen a little, but they watch a lot. And the things that you say must be backed up with the deeds that you do, the work that you do. But you have to be very responsible. With great power comes great responsibility. It's from the Bible, not Stan Lee, just saying. But at the end of the day, when you guys work through all this, you got to make sure you're thoughtful in what you do. And you guys particularly produce great information that's thoughtful, thought-provoking in a positive way, but give people a voice, brother. That you have to give them a voice. And then once you give them a voice or a platform, you know what the other part is? You got to listen. You might be great in a squadron of bringing all these great avenues to talk to the masses and talk to the individuals and get feedback and two-way communication. But you know what? If you're not listening, then they might as well not have a voice. How do you listen? You lose your agenda. So when I walk into a conversation, if I want to truly listen to you, I have to lose whatever agenda I have. I shouldn't be trying to persuade you. I should be listening. And then as soon as you lose your agenda, then you can truly hear. And it can't be like this. You can't have your phone and be like, okay, hold on a second, can you wait 5 minutes? I got to finish this cat video because this is fantastic, right? As soon as you pick up your phone, you're showing me that you're not present. And when you're not present, you're showing me you don't have any empathy. When you don't have empathy, you're showing me that you truly don't want to connect with me. So, just be present. Be present with the people.
That's so hard. The best way to do it is pull that cat card out, right? And then,
just
grab your chair and move it.
Turn it around. Yep. Yeah. Turn around towards a person. But man, BK, we could be here for 4 more hours. Legit. Like we could sit here for 4 more hours, but and you've been dropping some gems and we really appreciate it. But typically we wrap these up about an hour and we still got the rapid fire questions that we need to get your answers to. So we're hoping that you're still willing to go ahead and answer to our series of 4 questions. All right. And it might be
Oh,
a little
most
bit
definitely.
of a tweak. Awesome. Good stuff. All right.
Just realize though, I don't have fast answers. So listen, if this goes longer than an hour, it's not my fault.
That may be
That's
the
all
reason
good.
why we're starting this now. All right, brother. And I think we talked about a lot of different things at this point, but the question number one is, what is your favorite leadership trait?
Vulnerability.
Awesome.
You know, if I have to just shoot from the cuff, I think you might not think traditionally as great leaders being vulnerable, but I think if you really peel them back, they're pretty vulnerable.
Yeah.
Right? They had the ability. The reason that people followed them is because they opened themselves up to say, "I feel what you feel," and yet I'm still stronger for it. I'm not weaker for it. So I think if you guys have the ability, if any of us have the ability to be vulnerable to others, you're going to connect with more people than you can. I hid who I was. Let me rephrase that. I didn't hide who I was because it's pretty hard to hide who I am. But I didn't bring all of me all the time because that would make me vulnerable. And I didn't like that because I've already been pounded and hurt. And I didn't like to do that again. But then once I got to a point, I was like, you know what? Screw it. I know how it is to lose everything. I don't have fear anymore. I'm just gonna be vulnerable. And I'm telling you, once I did that, my ability to lead grew exponentially. It truly did. And I'll cut that as short as I can right there.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. Question number two. What is your favorite quote?
Oh man. You can choose what matters, but not who matters. And it's my own quote. So I don't know if that's like egotistical. I apologize if it is.
No, it's a good one.
But this is what I would say to you guys too. It's so easy to take a bunch of selfies with people, and I do that too because people love seeing pictures, with people, and some people love putting other people's quotes up, and some people love, pages of books of other people's stuff. But if you're trying to connect with the audience, if that's your intent, if your platform is to connect personally with other people, why don't you say what you say, and why don't you do videos, right? Do videos of yourself, your actual self, your raw, real self of who you are, to truly let people connect with that. And I think, man, if I could peel back all the pages, not a lot of people are willing to do that. Some people say, hey, I connect with people anyway, but do you really? I mean, what do you know? If you're going to see me just off the hook, give you 1 minute of everything I got in me, I think you might learn more from that 1 minute than me doing 1,000 posts of other people's books. Or 1,000 posts of other people's quotes. So I challenge you, man. What do you think? What do you think? And can you somehow put that together in an eloquent enough way or an understandable enough way in the language of the people where somebody can wrap their head around it and it can move them? I challenge you, man. I challenge you to do that.
Great advice.
That's all I got to say.
Awesome. All right. Now, question number three. It's a little bit of a change up, but what are you reading right now?
Oh, man. What am I reading right now? So I just finished up Atomic Habits. I don't know, James Clear. I'm late to need on it. I know 1,000 people already read it. I just, the ones that I do like to read real quick during the week. Pressfield, he's got a ton of books. Just Google Pressfield.
Yeah.
And he's got I don't know, they're about 100 plus pages long.
He did War of Art, right? Is that War of Art?
He did. He did War of Art. Yeah. War of Art. Actually, I just finished up War of Art the other day. They're really small and you can get through them. People talk about reading a lot and yeah, I read, but I try to do more than just read. And I try to do more than just read leadership stuff. I try to just read whatever I can. There's so many lessons to be learned. Like I said, I see a life lesson in everything. Sometimes it's a curse, and my wife hates it because we could be doing anything. I'm like, did you see that? Let me tell you how I saw it through this lens. And she's like, oh my God, man, would you just shut up? Can it just be? Can it just be? But man, you gotta challenge yourself and try to gain as much education as you can because education brings understanding to experience. You can't run through life on sheer experience. You might be successful to this point, but eventually you're not going to be able to figure things out at the speed at which you need to be relevant because you're trusting 100% on your experience of an output and not understand the mechanisms that make that work. So educate yourself as much as possible. I could probably talk another hour on that, but I won't.
Yes.
All right. So, and final question is our deep question. So the Llama Lounge is all about life, learning, and leadership. So how do you find your harmony between life, learning, and leadership?
It's a great question. I think I never release learning, to tell you honestly. I think every aspect of everything I do, I'm trying to learn. If I'm a father, I'm trying to learn how to be a better father. If I'm a husband, I'm trying to learn how to be a better husband. If I'm a leader, if I'm an airman, you pick a title, I never release that. So there's no harmony in that. That's it. And then maybe something gets added to it, right? And a lot of that is situation dependent. We talk about harmony, and I think situation drives a lot. To tell you, you could call it priorities, whatever it may be. My priority through the next hour might be, or the prior hour was to get through this with you guys and try to do as much as we can in the hour collectively, not just me talking. But I think what made this great is as a conversation collectively to push out the best input or best output we can out of this conversation with the best input we can. So that's now. When I hang this up, I'm going to make some Belgian waffles for my family, right?
Nice.
So that moves on to my ability to make that with love and have the ingredients work in harmony and sit down with my kids and my wife and have dialogue to lead to understanding, to lead to connection. So that's my next priority. So my priority is going to shift. But the learning of it, and like when I make this next recipe, I might not do it exactly the same way. And whatever comes out of that, I'm going to learn. Like last time I ran out of vanilla extract, so I used some almond extract. And I liked it. I didn't use as much as I normally do, but I was learning. I learned something new that day through experiment. So to answer your question, learning stays where it is, and then you add something else to it, and that could be just minute to minute.
Man, that's so weird that we ran out of vanilla at my house too, and we used almond just like a couple days ago. But hey, BK, we really appreciate all of this, man, and we got to have you on again to get into some more deeper, some deeper conversations, some of the stuff that we talked about. I think we can go very long on any one of those things, right, that you talked about, and really value what you're doing, and more importantly, I value, and I think Frank can attest to this too, is we value who you are.
Definitely. BK, as always, we're gonna as soon as we get off this, we're gonna have to figure out when to get you on next. I know your schedule is pretty tight, but we really value your time. We appreciate your insight, and as we close this thing up, I just want to say thanks again, and blessings to you and your family out there, not only within your house, but over there in Yokota. And to the Llama listeners out there, appreciate your time, and we'll see you next time. Llama's out.
Llama's out.
Thanks for tuning in to the Llama Lounge podcast. Be sure to visit the homepage for links to products and services related to this episode. And don't forget to subscribe to the show on your podcast platform of choice. See you next time.